This is Axis Empires Ultimate Edition. We're restarting the game at 1939 start on both maps. We will be beginning in August, September, which is the autumn seasonal turn for 1939. Now, in terms of the reset, it's actually taken 4 hours to redo all this. Basically, because I couldn't assume that anything was right in terms of setting up the 1939 thing. So I had to redo the entire setup. The ships was the most tedious bit, to say the least, having to do all them again. In terms of how the actual game's played out, the Japanese have done a lot better in China than they did in the game I play, but that's because I managed to cheat the the Japanese out of 8 turns, seasonal turns where they could have attacked, and also the Japanese in the turns where they did fight. In my previous game, they had terrible luck. They were throwing 5s and 6s every time. They also had a lot more detachments placed here, but yet again, that's due to the fact they lost a load of turns near the end where the detachments were being placed. In terms of shipbuilding, they actually did better with the reset, and yet again, that's due to the appalling throws the Japanese were getting. They needed 1, 2, and 3s to get ships, and they were constantly rolling 4, 5s, and 6s. I think they managed to get 1 ship up to 1939 on the the building rolls for excuse me the building rolls for the game. Everything else is pretty much the same because obviously the war hasn't affected the Americans and the British, so that's all as it was. The situation in China for the Allies is very, very different, starkly different. There's like the Chinese, obviously they've lost Nanking, the capital, and retreated to Chongqing as the new capital, and they've also got the Sichuan units are separated from the Jiangsu units. Another difference is Yunnan is actually inside the Western Alliance at this point. Yet again, that's because there were turns that I missed which would have allowed them to influence those Chinese miners. One thing I did do wrong, even though it tells you categorically don't do this wrong, is on the shipbuilding chart there's not enough boxes for you. I will just move over to have a quick look at it. Woo. Yeah, there's not enough boxes to actually have every sort of seasonal turn for each year. So the share boxes, now they tell you don't, if you have anything that's going into 1943 onwards, don't actually put it on the board in 1937. And lo and behold, I put them on the board in 1937. What a wally. Anyway, so that was another mistake that was going to cause problems. In terms of the situation in Europe, it's pretty similar. Well, it's exactly the same in terms of territory, apart from the Spanish Civil War was obviously won by the Nationalists. The only real difference is the actual unit. The armies are slightly stronger. The Polish army is slightly weaker than when I put it in play, but mainly because they had a good mobilization role. The Russian army is much stronger than it was in my turn, but yet again, that's because they missed a lot of turns when they were pulling in lots of steps in replacements. The German army isn't that strong. I'm going to have another look at this. It's actually probably slightly weaker than it was in my version of the game, which is very odd. I'll double check that. It certainly does. The Germans aren't anywhere near as strong as the Case White scenario. That's the training scenario. It should be able to do what they need to do in terms of knocking the Poles out, because, as I say, the Poles are slightly weaker than they were in the game I just abandoned. British, exactly the same, really. No changes there, apart from the fact that the ships, I made the same error with some of the British ships. The French army is slightly stronger than it was. Yet again, that's because they had more turns to pull in replacements. So, apart from that, I don't think there was anything surprising. There's a couple of cards that are in the historical play. Only a couple of them for both maps. I think there's only actually two which weren't played in the 1939 setup, which is weird, but that's just the way it is. I'm not going to argue with that. Setting the decks up, I've had to obviously rejig all the decks and get rid of loads of cards and stuff like that. I'm going to try and continue doing the historical card pulls, but I might experiment a little bit. So, as I said, that was a lot of work setting that up, and it's a bit demoralising having to do all that, and I'm just going to step aside from this and have a look at it again tomorrow and get a bit more enthusiasm for the actual game. Right, that's it.